She scratched my face out of our wedding photos and hid my miscarriage test in a jewelry box for when I'm finally honest. When I asked her why, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Your body rejected the baby because it knew you were lying." I just stared at her. That was over a year ago. This morning, she cried, watching Hope say her name. My mother-in-law Sasha treated finding some kind of fault with me like it was her full-time job, complete with overtime and holiday bonuses. From the moment her precious Edward put a ring on my finger, she viewed me like a bad case of hemorrhoids. She started small, like a mosquito testing for weak spots. Comments about how I loaded the dishwasher wrong escalated to theories about why a paralegal couldn't possibly understand the pressures of being married to a lawyer. She'd arrive unannounced during Edward's business trips, inspecting our home like she was conducting a substance raid, checking laundry and sniffing pillows for unfamiliar cologne. The woman literally hired a private investigator who followed me with all the subtlety of a parade float. When I gained 15 pounds from the fertility treatments we hadn't told anyone about, she announced at Thanksgiving dinner that I must be eating my feelings about something secretive. The breaking point came when I discovered she'd planted a GPS tracker in my car during Sunday dinner, while pretending to look for her reading glasses in the garage. Finding that little device felt like discovering my appendix had been replaced with a webcam. But instead of rage, a strange calm washed over me, like the eye of a hurricane filled with revenge ideas. If Sasha wanted to catch me cheating so badly, I'd make sure she caught exactly what she came fishing for. I began crafting evidence with the dedication of a scrapbook enthusiast. That receipt from La Bernardina Romantic Restaurant at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, when normal people have jobs, actually from a client lunch, but I made sure to pay cash for everything except one glass of wine. But the receipt found its way in my bedroom trash can. The burner phone I bought had exactly 2 messages. Someone texting me a location, and I replied, "Can't wait." I'd leave it visible just long enough for her to photograph the screen during her Thursday spy sessions when she brings over some food. Every breadcrumb led somewhere specific, like a treasure map drawn by someone with a drunken pirate with too much free time. The execution unfolded like a symphony conducted by a sugar-rushed toddler. Chaotic, but somehow perfect. Sasha compiled her evidence with the enthusiasm of a conspiracy theorist who'd finally found proof of lizard people. She demanded a family intervention, even hiring a lawyer who looked like he specialized in divorce proceedings and disappointed expressions. She made a PowerPoint titled, "Edward, the Truth About Your Wife," and I sat silent as a mime as she started presenting her evidence. She'd photographed the wine receipt, the mysterious texts, even a grainy photo of me entering the Ritz-Carlton at noon. She saved the crescendo for last, the hotel reservation for that very evening, proof of my affair. That's when Edward stood up, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and horror, like a slot machine hitting the worst jackpot. "Mom, I know about the hotel. I booked it." Every piece of evidence I didn't plant myself led to Edward's surprise vow renewal ceremony. But the moment that broke Edward completely was when Sasha accidentally revealed she knew about our fertility treatments, information she could only have gotten by going through our private medical files in our safe. The aftermath was more satisfying than finding money in your winter coat pocket. Edward's sister taped the whole intervention. The video spread through our family WhatsApp like wildfire with the title, "Mom Loses Her Mind at Intervention She Planned." Her reputation transformed from concerned mother to the family equivalent of a tin-foil hat enthusiast. Edward finally understood everything, especially after we found 2 more trackers, one in my purse lining and another in my favorite shoes. We moved across the country faster than Sasha could say misunderstanding, and now she only sees us through supervised video calls where she still insists I orchestrated everything. But here's where I need judgment. Last week, our doorbell camera caught Sasha at 3 a.m., standing at our door 2,000 miles from home, cradling something wrapped in a baby blanket, singing a lullaby. The footage shows her placing it reverently on our porch before walking away. When we opened the door, we found what she'd left, my positive pregnancy test from 3 years ago, the one I'd thrown away after our 3rd miscarriage, preserved in a jewelry box with a note, "For when you're finally honest about why you're really hiding from family." The test I'd wrapped in tissue and buried in the bathroom trash, the test only someone going through our garbage would have found. I had the sickening realization that my worst secret was about to be revealed to everyone, and there wasn't anywhere on earth I thought I'd be safe. I wish I could tell you it ended there, but it didn't. I stood frozen on our porch at 3:15 a.m., staring at that preserved test like it was a live grenade. My hands trembled as I picked up the jewelry box, the weight of 3 years of grief suddenly crushing down on me. Edward appeared behind me, his lawyer instincts kicking in even through his sleep fog. He saw what I held and his face went pale. Inside our bedroom, I showed him the note, watching his expression shift from confusion to disbelief. He kept shaking his head, running his fingers through his hair the way he did during difficult cases. When he finally saw Sasha's handwriting on that note, his hands started shaking too. The realization hit him like a physical blow. His mother had been digging through our garbage, collecting our most private moments of loss. Edward grabbed his phone and dialed Sasha's number. I tried to stop him, but he was already pacing our bedroom like a caged animal. She answered on the first ring, her voice clear and alert, not the voice of someone who'd been sleeping. She'd been waiting for this call. When Edward demanded answers, her response made my blood run cold. She simply said she had more evidence, more tests, more of our private pain cataloged and preserved. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chen next door. She'd seen our visitor and wanted to make sure we were okay. Then she mentioned something that made my stomach drop. Sasha had been asking questions about us for weeks, not just Chen, but other neighbors too. She'd been building a network, gathering intelligence like some suburban spy. Edward and I huddled in our kitchen, debating our next move. I wanted to call the police immediately, but Edward argued for handling this within the family. His law firm had dealt with harassment cases before, and he knew the limitations of legal intervention when it came to family matters. While we argued, I pulled up our security footage on my laptop. There was Sasha's rental car, parked 3 houses down. She'd been watching us for who knows how long. Edward finally agreed to a compromise. He sent a text to his sister Emma, asking her to fly in immediately. We needed a witness, someone who could mediate between us and his mother. Emma had always been the voice of reason in their family, the one who could talk Sasha down from her worst impulses. While waiting for Emma's response, I scrolled through more doorbell footage. My heart nearly stopped when I saw it. Before placing the jewelry box, Sasha had carefully arranged something else on our porch. She'd moved our doormat, placed items underneath, and repositioned everything perfectly. If we hadn't known to look, we never would have noticed. I grabbed a flashlight and went back outside, Edward close behind me. Lifting the doormat revealed a stack of photos, our wedding pictures, but with my face scratched out in every single one. The violence of those scratch marks, the time it must have taken to deface each photo, made me physically ill. One photo had a date written on the back, last week. She'd been doing this recently, not 3 years ago. This was fresh hatred. Edward's phone started exploding with texts. His aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone was suddenly messaging him. Sasha had been sending them cryptic messages about finally having proof of something. The messages were vague but ominous, designed to create maximum worry without revealing specifics. She was setting the stage for something bigger. His father Henry called next, his voice heavy with exhaustion and embarrassment. Sasha had left their house at midnight, claiming she needed to save Edward from making a terrible mistake. Henry had tried to stop her, but she'd been inconsolable, ranting about bloodlines and family honor. He'd assumed she was having another one of her episodes and would calm down by morning. I decided to drive around our neighborhood, hoping to spot where Sasha might be staying. At the coffee shop 2 blocks away, I found her rental car. Through the window, I could see papers on the dashboard. A rental agreement for a local motel, dated 2 weeks ago. She'd been in town for 2 weeks, watching us, planning this moment. A receipt was visible too, the kind motels give you when you pay in advance. Emma's text came through. She was booking the first flight out. She also revealed that Sasha had called her earlier, crying about protecting the family bloodline and mentioning their grandfather's inheritance. The pieces were starting to come together. Their grandfather was wealthy, and his will was being reviewed. Sasha was building a case to have me excluded from any inheritance Edward might receive. As the sun started to rise, my best friend Keisha called. Her voice was confused and worried. Sasha had contacted her last week, claiming to be planning a surprise party for Edward and me. She'd asked invasive questions about our relationship, our plans for children, whether I'd ever mentioned past relationships. Keisha had thought it was strange, but assumed it was just Sasha being Sasha. I went through my phone, checking old messages with fresh eyes. Oh my goodness, what a wild ride this is turning into. The way this story flips from the narrator getting sweet revenge to Sasha showing up at their door at 3 a.m. with that pregnancy test, my heart is racing. 3 months ago, I'd received several wrong number texts asking strange questions. At the time, I dismissed them as spam. Now I recognize the pattern. Someone fishing for information, trying to get me to reveal something, anything that could be used against me. The number was different, but the approach was pure Sasha. Edward's phone rang again. Sasha was texting him directly now, begging him to come alone to her motel. She claimed I was dangerous, that she had evidence that would change everything. She pleaded with him to come without me, for his own safety. The manipulation was so transparent, it would have been laughable if it wasn't so disturbing. My work called next. Our office manager was confused. Someone claiming to be conducting a background check had been calling, asking about my sick days, my schedule, whether I'd ever mentioned medical issues. They'd been professional enough that the manager had almost given out information before realizing something was off. Father Martinez from the local Catholic church called Edward. He was concerned about Sasha's spiritual crisis. She'd been attending daily mass for the past 2 weeks, always sitting in the back, always leaving in tears. She'd befriended him at the grocery store, slowly revealing her fears about her son's marriage. He'd tried to counsel her about acceptance and forgiveness, but she'd become increasingly agitated. I made a decision. While Sasha was at morning mass, I would go to her motel and see what other evidence she had. Edward protested, but I needed to know the full scope of what we were dealing with. We couldn't fight what we didn't understand. The motel manager recognized Sasha's photo immediately. She'd paid for a full month in advance, cash only. She'd been receiving packages daily, from online retailers, from a document storage company, from places the manager couldn't identify. The delivery logs showed a pattern of systematic preparation. Whatever Sasha was planning, she'd been building toward it for weeks. Emma arrived on the afternoon flight, looking exhausted but determined. She brought troubling news. Their aunts had been receiving anonymous letters about my suspicious past. The handwriting was disguised, but Emma had compared them. They all came from the same person. The letters hinted at previous marriages, hidden children, a secret life I'd concealed from Edward. The pattern was becoming clear. Sasha wasn't just trying to prove I was cheating. She was building an entire narrative that I was a con artist who had trapped Edward for his money, that I was hiding previous relationships and children, that our fertility struggles were all an act. She was creating a complete fiction designed to destroy not just our marriage, but my entire identity. Linda, my former hairdresser, called with a warning. Sasha had been in her salon, asking about conversations we'd had years ago. She wanted to know if I'd ever mentioned past relationships, medical issues, family problems. Linda had told her nothing, but she wanted me to know someone was digging into my past. That evening, Edward set up a FaceTime call with his mother, with Emma present as a witness. When Sasha appeared on screen, she looked disheveled, manic. Behind her, we could see evidence boards covered in photos, documents, and string connecting different elements. There was a timeline on the wall, tracking my movements for what looked like years. File boxes were stacked everywhere, each one labeled with dates and categories. Sasha launched into a rambling explanation about protecting future grandchildren from my genetic deception. She claimed she had proof I was hiding something terrible, that I'd trapped Edward with lies about fertility issues. Edward cut the call when she started ranting about purifying the family line, but not before we'd seen enough to understand the depth of her obsession. Uncle Pete texted Edward that Sasha had asked him to recommend a family law attorney. She'd mentioned custody issues, which made no sense since we had no children. Unless she was planning for a future where she'd need to fight for access to grandchildren, she was convinced we were hiding. Sasha posted old family photos on Facebook that evening, carefully curated images from holidays and birthdays that pointedly excluded me. The captions read like love letters to a past that never existed, when our family was pure and before complications. The comments section exploded within minutes. Cousins who hadn't spoken in years suddenly emerged to ask what was happening. Some defended me, others stayed silent, but a few older relatives began questioning why I wasn't in any of the photos. I recognized this pattern from therapy sessions about my own mother, the gaslighting, the public manipulation, the careful construction of an alternative reality. I decided to document everything meticulously. Screenshots, timestamps, witness statements. If Sasha wanted to play investigator, I'd build my own case file. The fertility clinic called the next morning. Their receptionist sounded shaken. Someone had tried to access our records, claiming to be my mother and insisting it was a medical emergency. The woman had known enough personal details to seem credible, but clinic protocol required written authorization. When denied access, process, she'd become aggressive, demanding to speak to supervisors and threatening legal action. The receptionist provided a written incident report. The description matched Sasha perfectly, down to the designer handbag she always carried. Edward's cousin Sarah reached out privately that afternoon. Sasha had approached her at the grocery store, offering $5,000 if Sarah would spy on us during her upcoming birthday party. Sarah had refused, but she wanted us to know. The fact that Sasha was now trying to recruit family members as paid informants showed a new level of desperation. I created a detailed timeline on my laptop, mapping every incident against family events. A pattern emerged immediately. Sasha's behavior had escalated dramatically after Edward's grandfather's terminal diagnosis 6 months ago. Every spike in harassment coincided with discussions about inheritance or family legacy. She wasn't just trying to destroy our marriage, she was trying to ensure Edward inherited alone. We consulted with local police that afternoon. The officer listened patiently, but explained that without explicit threats, this remained a family matter. He suggested filing for a restraining order, but warned it could take weeks to process and might escalate the situation. Family harassment cases were notoriously difficult to prosecute. Emma and I met for coffee while Edward handled work calls. She shared stories I'd never heard before. 3 of Edward's previous girlfriends who'd mysteriously ended their relationships after encounters with Sasha. 1 had transferred colleges, another had moved states. The 3rd had needed therapy after Sasha convinced her she was destroying Edward's future. Emma had watched this pattern for years but had never seen Sasha go this far. I hired my own investigator that week, someone recommended by Edward's firm. Within days, he'd uncovered disturbing information. Sasha had been researching fertility fraud cases online, printing articles about women who'd lied about pregnancies to trap wealthy men. Her search history showed an obsession with inheritance law and family trusts. She'd even joined online forums for grandparents' rights, despite having no grandchildren. Edward's high school girlfriend Rachel reached out through Facebook. She'd received a call from Sasha the previous week, asking if Edward had any children from their teenage relationship. The question was so bizarre that Rachel had immediately blocked the number, but she thought Edward should know his mother was contacting people from decades ago. Instead of reacting with anger, I decided to unsettle Sasha with kindness. I sent flowers to her house for her birthday, with a sweet note thanking her for raising such a wonderful son. Emma reported that Sasha had stared at the arrangement for hours, convinced it was some form of psychological warfare. She'd even had the flowers tested for poison. Edward's grandfather requested a meeting with Edward to review his will. The family lawyer mentioned that Sasha had been pressuring him to make changes, specifically regarding future grandchildren and their inheritance rights. Edward's grandfather, though ill, remained sharp enough to recognize manipulation. He asked Edward directly about our marriage and plans for children. During a video conference with Edward's law firm, Sasha somehow appeared in the background, wailing about being kept from her future grandchildren. She'd apparently been waiting in the building's lobby and followed someone with a keycard. Edward's managing partner witnessed the entire display. He suggested Edward take some time off to handle his family situation, a professional blow that devastated Edward. I spotted Sasha's rental car in the grocery store parking lot the following Tuesday. Through the window, I watched her duck behind a display when she noticed me. Her shopping cart was filled with baby formula, diapers, and infant supplies. The sight was so surreal I stood frozen in the cereal aisle, trying to process what I was seeing. The confrontation came 3 days later. Sasha approached me at the farmer's market, speaking loudly enough for other shoppers to hear. She accused me of stealing her son and hiding her grandchildren. I responded calmly, simply stating we were still trying to have children. The shock on her face was genuine. She'd convinced herself so thoroughly that we were hiding babies that the truth destabilized her. Edward discovered the financial scope of Sasha's obsession when he reviewed his parents' bank statements. Henry had asked for help understanding their depleted savings. The records showed 3 years of payments to various private investigators, totaling approximately $75,000. That number makes me really curious about what Sasha thinks she's been paying for all this time. The baby supplies in her cart. I wonder if she's so deep in her own story that she truly believes there are hidden grandchildren somewhere, or if this is some kind of strange performance for witnesses. The realization that his mother had spent their retirement savings on surveillance broke something in Henry. Emma arranged a neutral meeting at a coffee shop, hoping to mediate. Sasha arrived with a binder of evidence, but when pressed to explain her behavior, she could only insist that she knew I was hiding something. Her reasoning was circular. No innocent person would tolerate her behavior so patiently, therefore my patience proved my guilt. The anonymous letters to family members intensified. Edward's aunts compared notes and realized they'd all received similar warnings from different concerned friends. The handwriting analysis Emma had done confirmed what we suspected. All 7 letters came from the same person, despite claims of being from different sources. Church committee members began distancing themselves from Sasha after she brought evidence binders to prayer groups. She'd tried to recruit them to pray for Edward's protection from my deception, but even her most sympathetic friends recognized the obsession had crossed into concerning territory. Family members started independently fact-checking Sasha's stories. Edward's cousin created a timeline comparing what Sasha had told different relatives. The contradictions were staggering. I was simultaneously a gold digger who'd trapped Edward and a career woman who refused to have children. I was hiding previous marriages but also had never been able to maintain a relationship. The lies collapsed under their own weight. Edward's law partners offered security support after Sasha appeared at the office demanding to see financial records. She'd claimed to be a concerned investor, but the security footage showed her trying to access personnel files. The partners were considering legal action, a development that horrified Edward. During a family dinner at Sasha's sister Margaret's house, she finally spoke up. She admitted that Sasha had done similar things to her own daughter-in-law years ago, though not to this extent. Margaret had documentation, old letters, recorded phone calls, evidence of a pattern spanning decades. The family sat in stunned silence as the scope of Sasha's behavior became clear. Henry discovered Sasha's evidence room while looking for Christmas decorations in their basement. The space looked like a detective's office from a crime show. Photos covered the walls, connected by red string. File boxes contained receipts, printed emails, and surveillance photos. The most disturbing discovery was a box of items stolen from our home during her visits. Hair from my brush, receipts from my purse, even a used pregnancy test from our bathroom trash. The revelation about Edward's college girlfriend came from Henry himself. After Sasha's harassment campaign 20 years ago, the young woman had suffered a nervous breakdown and left school. Henry had paid for her therapy and helped her transfer, but they'd never told Edward. The pattern of destruction stretched back decades. I attended Tommy's soccer game that weekend, Sasha's nephew's son. She was there too, filming me with her phone whenever I interacted with children. She seemed convinced that my comfort around kids proved I was hiding my own. I made sure Tommy wasn't exposed to any conflict, keeping my distance and letting him enjoy his game. Edward's cousins created a group chat excluding Sasha to coordinate family responses. They shared information, compared stories, and offered support. The family was slowly unifying, not against Sasha exactly, but in protection of the truth. Sasha's attempt to turn my coworkers against me failed spectacularly when she mentioned medical waste to our office manager. No one understood what she meant, and her agitated state made people uncomfortable. My colleagues rallied around me, offers of support pouring in. Henry caught Sasha going through my purse during a restaurant dinner. I'd left it on my chair when I went to the bathroom, and he watched her rifle through it, photographing receipts and checking prescription bottles. When confronted, she claimed she was looking for gum, but Henry's faith in his wife was crumbling. Former neighbors from our old city began reaching out with apologies. They'd realized in hindsight that Sasha's questions about our marriage had been inappropriate. One mentioned that Sasha had offered to pay for information about our daily routines. The investigator I'd hired uncovered Sasha's digital footprint. She'd been paying for background check services monthly for 2 years, running my name through every database she could access. The search history painted a picture of escalating obsession, from simple Google searches to paid investigative services. Edward's grandfather's health declined rapidly. The family faced difficult decisions about his care and who could visit. The question of whether to ban Sasha from the hospital hung heavy over everyone. She'd been caught trying to record him discussing his will, claiming she needed evidence of his mental state. During a lucid moment, Edward's grandfather pulled Edward aside. He revealed that Sasha had been telling him I'd had a termination of pregnancy, trying to poison him against me. The lie was particularly cruel given our fertility struggles. Edward's grandfather saw through it, but the attempt to manipulate a dying man shocked even those who'd grown accustomed to Sasha's behavior. The grandfather added a codicil to his will, specifically including me and any future children we might have. The family lawyer made sure it was ironclad, anticipating challenges. Sasha wasn't informed of the change, a decision that would later prove significant. Sasha's final attempt to convince Edward that I'd manipulated his grandfather came during a tense phone call. She insisted I'd taken advantage of a medicated elderly man, that the will changes were proof of my con. Edward hung up on his mother for the first time in his life. The conversation that changed everything happened in the hospital parking lot. Edward told Sasha plainly that if she continued her behavior, she would never meet any grandchildren we might have. The threat of being cut off from future grandchildren, the very thing she claimed to be protecting, finally seemed to penetrate her obsession. Edward's law firm banned Sasha from the premises after security footage revealed her attempting to access personnel files. She'd claimed to be updating emergency contact information, but cameras showed her trying to enter restricted areas. The partners discussed pursuing criminal charges, a possibility that terrified Henry. At Edward's grandfather's funeral, the family formed a protective barrier around me. Sasha was kept at a distance by relatives who'd finally understood the situation. The public nature of the rejection seemed to break something in her. She stood alone at the graveside, isolated by her own actions. Margaret provided the most shocking revelation. She'd kept records of Sasha's behavior toward her own daughter-in-law 15 years earlier. The patterns were identical: the surveillance, the anonymous letters, the attempts to find evidence of deception. Her daughter-in-law had eventually divorced her son, unable to handle the constant harassment. Margaret had stayed silent then, but refused to watch it happen again. Armed with 3 years of documentation, Edward presented Sasha with a cease and desist letter drafted by his firm. The legal language outlined every incident of harassment, every violation of privacy, every attempt to damage our reputations. Sasha laughed when she received it, a sound devoid of humor that chilled everyone present. The breakthrough came when Henry found bank records showing the full scope of Sasha's spending: $127,000 over 3 years, their entire retirement savings spent on private investigators, surveillance equipment, and legal consultations. The financial betrayal hit Henry harder than the emotional one. He'd worked his entire life for that money. The family confronted Sasha at Margaret's house with the complete documentation. Faced with evidence of her obsession, she still insisted everything she'd done was to protect Edward. Even when shown the stolen items from our home, the falsified letters, the recorded lies, she maintained she was the victim of my manipulation. Henry's breaking point came when Sasha accused him of being compromised by my influence. After 40 years of marriage, she claimed he couldn't see the truth because I'd somehow brainwashed him too. The accusation that he'd betrayed their family by not supporting her delusions was too much. Cornered and desperate, Sasha revealed she'd created fake dating profiles to try to catch me on apps. She showed elaborate fake conversations she'd had with men pretending to be me, not understanding that I'd never used dating apps. The level of fabrication required, creating profiles, maintaining conversations, manufacturing evidence of cheating that never existed, illustrated the depth of her break from reality. The cruelest accusation came next. Sasha claimed I'd caused our first 2 miscarriages through stress and deception, that my body had rejected the pregnancies because I was living a lie. The words hung in the air like poison, too vicious for anyone to process immediately. Emma wavered when Sasha produced a parking ticket from near a women's clinic. The doubt in her eyes devastated me. Sasha didn't know the clinic housed multiple medical services, including the fertility specialist we'd been seeing, but for a moment, even Emma wondered if there was truth to the termination of pregnancy story. Edward was stuck in a deposition when the family turned on me. I stood alone in Margaret's living room, defending myself against years of manufactured evidence. The medical records I'd brought proved our fertility journey, but the damage of Sasha's campaign was evident in the skeptical faces around me. This family meeting is absolutely explosive. The way Henry found that evidence room with photos connected by red string and stolen items from their home, including hair and a pregnancy test, that's like something straight out of a thriller movie. I made the decision to share our miscarriage story publicly. The pain of revealing such private grief was excruciating, but it was the only way to counter Sasha's narrative. I explained each loss, each failed treatment, each devastating negative test. The room fell silent as the truth of our struggle emerged. The revelation triggered an avalanche of similar stories. Edward's aunt admitted she'd had 4 miscarriages before having her children. His cousin shared her ongoing IVF journey. Others spoke of losses they'd hidden for years. The family's fertility struggles, long buried under shame and silence, came pouring out. Each story highlighted how Sasha had mocked or dismissed their pain over the years. Henry stood in the center of Margaret's living room, his shoulders sagging as he pulled out a manila folder. His hands shook as he spread bank statements across the coffee table. The room grew silent as everyone leaned in to see the highlighted transactions. Page after page showed withdrawals, wire transfers, and credit card charges to investigation firms, surveillance equipment companies, and legal consultants. The running total at the bottom made several relatives gasp: $127,000 over 3 years. Margaret grabbed the statements, her face cycling through disbelief and rage. She traced her finger down the columns, recognizing retirement account withdrawals they'd planned to use for their golden years. Henry explained how Sasha had become fixated after overhearing me mention fertility struggles at a family dinner 3 years ago. That single comment had triggered an obsession that consumed their entire savings. The family members exchanged glances, processing this new information. Edward's cousin pulled out her phone, calculating what that money could have bought: a house down payment, college tuition, years of comfortable retirement. The waste of it all hung heavy in the room. Sasha, cornered by the evidence, began pacing Margaret's living room like a trapped animal. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through thousands of photos she'd taken of me over the years: shopping trips, doctor visits, lunches with friends, all documented with timestamps and notes. She thrust the phone at family members, insisting they look closer, see the deception she saw. When no one validated her theories, Sasha's desperation peaked. She grabbed a marker from Margaret's desk and began drawing on the wall, creating a timeline of my supposed deceptions. Family members tried to stop her, but she was beyond reason, scrawling dates and accusations across Margaret's freshly painted walls. Emma stepped forward, physically placing herself between Sasha and the wall. The confrontation that followed was brief but decisive. Sasha attempted to push past her daughter, but Emma held firm. Other family members formed a barrier, preventing Sasha from continuing her vandalism. Margaret disappeared into her study and returned with a business card. She'd already contacted a professional mediator who specialized in family interventions. The appointment was set for the following morning. She'd been preparing for this moment, knowing Sasha's behavior would eventually require professional intervention. That night, Edward and I returned home to find our front door slightly ajar. Nothing was missing, but small things had been moved: photo frames turned backward, books rearranged, drawers left open. The security system had been bypassed using the old code we'd given Sasha years ago. We spent hours documenting the intrusion, taking photos of every disturbance. The intervention began at 9 the next morning in Margaret's living room. The mediator, a woman with silver hair and a calm demeanor, had reviewed the documentation Margaret provided. Sasha arrived believing the meeting was to confront me about my deceptions. Her face when she realized she was the subject of intervention would have been satisfying if it wasn't so tragic. Sasha had brought reinforcements, a woman from her church who claimed to be my secret sister. The woman stood nervously by the door, clutching a folder of what she called proof. When the mediator asked her to explain, she began reciting a story about how I'd abandoned my family, changed my name, and trapped Edward for his money. The mediator asked for evidence. The woman opened her folder, revealing printed emails and text messages. Emma grabbed them, examining each one carefully. She recognized the email addresses, all variations of accounts Sasha had created. The text messages were from burner phones, the numbers matching receipts found in Sasha's evidence room. Under gentle questioning from the mediator, the church woman began to crack. She admitted Sasha had spent months convincing her that I was dangerous, that I'd destroyed other families, that stopping me was God's work. She'd never met me before that day, had no actual connection to me, had simply believed Sasha's elaborate fiction. The woman broke down completely, realizing she'd been manipulated into participating in harassment. She apologized repeatedly before fleeing the house, leaving Sasha without her star witness. Family members watched in stunned silence as another piece of Sasha's elaborate construction crumbled. Henry stood next, pulling legal documents from his briefcase. He'd filed for separation that morning, the papers already notarized. He'd also frozen their joint accounts, protecting what remained of their assets. His voice remained steady as he explained that Sasha could choose treatment or divorce, but their current situation was over. Sasha's reaction was immediate and physical. She lunged for the separation papers, trying to tear them from Henry's hands. When he pulled them away, she turned on me, moving faster than anyone expected. Edward stepped between us, something he'd never done before, physically blocking his mother's approach. The mediator called for calm, but Sasha was beyond reach. She began pulling items from her purse, more photos, receipts, printed emails, throwing them in the air like confetti. Each piece of evidence fluttered to the ground, creating a carpet of obsession across Margaret's floor. In her frenzy, Sasha made one final accusation. She claimed I was pregnant again, that I'd timed it to steal the inheritance, that the baby would secure my position in the family. She demanded I take a pregnancy test immediately, in front of everyone, to prove my deception. I reached into my purse and pulled out a different kind of evidence: recent medical bills from our IVF treatments, appointment cards for upcoming procedures, medication receipts. I spread them on the table, showing the ongoing reality of our fertility struggle. The dates were recent, the amounts significant, the evidence undeniable. The mediator guided the family through a formal vote. Each member was asked whether they supported a no-contact order until Sasha completed a treatment program. One by one, hands raised. Edward's aunts, his cousins, even family members who'd initially doubted me. The vote was unanimous. Sasha watched the hands rise with growing disbelief. When the last hand went up, Henry's, something finally broke through her delusion. She sank into Margaret's armchair, her body seeming to deflate. For the first time in 3 years, she looked truly lost. The mediator presented treatment options. There was a facility 2 hours away specializing in delusional disorders and family fixations. The program was intensive, 90 days minimum, family therapy components, medication management. Insurance would cover most of it, though the family would need to contribute. Sasha's agreement came not with words, face, but with a small nod. She allowed Henry to help her to their car, moving like someone in a dream. In the parking lot, she turned back to look at me one last time. Her lips moved, forming words I could see but not hear. Henry guided her into the passenger seat and they drove away. Edward and I spent the next week implementing security changes. New locks on every door, upgraded security system with codes Sasha had never known, cameras covering every angle of our property. We changed our phone numbers, updated privacy settings on social media, and informed neighbors about the no-contact order. Our workplaces implemented new verification procedures for anyone seeking information about us. The fertility clinic added extra security notes to our file. Even our regular grocery store was alerted, the manager promising to watch for any suspicious activity. 3 months passed in relative peace. Weekly reports from the treatment facility showed Sasha was participating in therapy, taking prescribed medications, slowly acknowledging the harm she'd caused. Henry visited weekly, returning with cautious optimism about her progress. Edward and I continued our IVF journey without the shadow of surveillance. The treatments were still difficult, the emotional toll still high, but without constant harassment, we could focus on our goal. Support came from unexpected places. Family members who'd been distant now checked in regularly, offering encouragement. The positive pregnancy test came on a Tuesday morning. I stared at the 2 lines, afraid to believe after so many failures. Edward found me sitting on the bathroom floor, test in hand, tears streaming down my face. His reaction was immediate and physical. He sank down beside me, pulling me close, his body shaking with emotion. We waited until the second trimester to share the news with family. The announcement came during Sunday dinner at Margaret's house. No grand gestures, no dramatic reveals, just quiet words shared over dessert. The joy in the room was palpable but restrained, everyone aware of our long journey. Updates from the treatment facility indicated Sasha was making genuine progress. Her therapist reported breakthrough moments where she acknowledged her actions, expressed remorse, and worked on understanding her obsessive patterns. The delusions about hidden grandchildren had faded, replaced by acceptance of reality. A letter arrived from Sasha 6 months into our pregnancy. Margaret read it first, screening for any concerning content. It was brief, written in shaky handwriting, expressing regret and asking for eventual forgiveness. No demands, no accusations, just acknowledgement of pain caused. Our daughter arrived on a snowy December morning, healthy and perfect. The delivery room was peaceful, just Edward and me and medical staff. No drama, no unexpected visitors, no need for security. We named her Hope, a choice that felt right after everything we'd endured. 1 year later, I sat in our living room, Hope balanced on my lap, facing the laptop screen. The video call was supervised by Sasha's therapist, who sat beside her in the facility's visiting room. Sasha looked different, calmer, medication clearly helping, the manic energy replaced by something quieter. The call lasted 15 minutes. Sasha watched Hope play with her toys, tears running down her cheeks. She acknowledged her wrongs, asked about our health, respected every boundary we'd established. When Hope reached toward the screen, babbling happily, Sasha's smile was genuine but sad. The calls would continue monthly, always supervised, always brief. Trust would take years to rebuild, if ever. But in choosing compassion over complete cutoff, we'd found our own peace. Some victories aren't about defeating enemies, but about protecting what matters while leaving room for redemption. Hope gurgled in my arms as we ended the call, unaware of the long journey that had led to her existence. Around us, the life we'd fought to protect continued. Messy, imperfect, but ours. The evidence of Sasha's obsession was locked away, the trackers long disposed of, the harassment finally ended. We were free to build our future, one careful day at a time. Thanks so much for letting me join you for this amazing story time. Can't wait until next time.